Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to teach you how to make your starter from the beginning and also how to store it and how to bring it back to life and all the little tricks. Alright, let's start. So before I start the whole process, in a clean jar I put away about 500 gram of all-purpose flour and 500 gram of whole wheat flour. I like this mixture for my starter. Now you can play around with that. If you don't have whole wheat, you could totally do this with 100% all-purpose flour. This flour mixture is going to be food for my starter. Okay, we're ready for our day one. Let's create a culture. So what is a culture? A culture is a combination of flour and water. So in a big glass mason jar, I put 1 cup of flour with roughly about a cup of water. You can kickstart the process by adding something sweet like grapes, honey, or a piece of apple. So here I'm looking for a pancake consistency batter. If it's a little bit dry, just add a bit of water. The batter shouldn't be too runny or too dry. Okay, now you're done. You cover it up with a kitchen towel and put a rubber band around it and put it somewhere in your kitchen counter to rest for 3 to 4 days. Okay, it's day 3 and I'm ready to check on my culture. So you want to see a lot of activity in your culture. Do you see all these bubbles? That means that's a good culture. It may have a little crust on top. It's completely normal. You might also notice a very unpleasant aroma, like a stinky cheese, a sharpie, acidic kind of aroma. This is fine. That only tells you that your culture is ready. Now, if your culture isn't this active, that's okay. It's only telling you it needs more time to get there. So just cover it with your kitchen towel and put it on the kitchen counter and check on it every day. Don't be discouraged if it takes 2, 3, or 4 more days for it to get there. Now we're ready for our first feeding. So I discard everything but about 1/4 cup of my culture. I mix in 1 cup of the flour mixture and about 1 cup of water. I mix it in to get that pancake-like texture that we talked about earlier. Cover it up with a kitchen towel and put it aside on the kitchen counter, and we will check on it back tomorrow. I like to put a rubber band on where my starter is so I can check to see the rice tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day and I'm very excited to check how my starter is doing. So let's see. Do you see the activity that is happening? Now it looks a little bit more bubblier than the day before. And you can see I have just a little bit of a rice over there, which is nice. So I discard everything again, but about 1/4 cup of the starter, and I feed my starter again with 1 cup of flour and roughly a cup of water. I want to create the consistency of the pancake batter. Mix it, cover it, and let it sit on your kitchen counter for another day. Don't forget the rubber band. Now it's day 5 and I'm ready for the 3rd feeding. Let's see what's happening with my starter now. Do you see it's airy? It may be a little bit runnier than before, which is fine. I have a little bit more rice than the day before. I pour it out and I leave about a 1/4 cup of my starter. Pour in 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of water. Put your rubber band, put it aside for another day. Now I'm ready for my next feeding. The starter should be more active than the day before. It's airier, it's holding together better, it's not as runny, and you can see all the different days that it has risen. Now that my starter looks pretty active, I'm going to change the feeding a little bit. So here I'm going to discard everything but about 2 tablespoons of the starter, but 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of water. So I'm doing less of the starter. It's day 7 and I'm ready to check my starter. My starter here should have doubled or close to tripled its size. Now, if you don't get here by now, it's fine. Just keep feeding your starter every day and eventually you'll get there. It may take 2, 3, 4 more days for it to be here. To test your starter, drop about 2 to 3 tablespoons of the starter in the water. It should be floating just like so. That means it's ready to start making bread. Now that you have your starter going, it is important to maintain it by feeding it on a regular basis. Keep in mind that training your starter is a forgiving process, so don't worry if you forget to feed it one day. Just make sure you feed it the next. The only way to mess up a starter is to neglect it for a long period of time or expose it to extreme heat. This is when you're making bread once or twice a week. So what you do, you feed your starter, you cover it up and you put it away in the fridge. This is how it should look like after it's been sitting in the fridge for about 5 to 6 days. It still has activity going on, so I'm going to do another feeding right now. So you dump everything out, you leave about 2 to 3 tablespoons of starter, a cup of flour, and about a cup of water. Cover it and look for it the next day. If it has a good rise, then you're ready to bake. Otherwise, feed it for another day. You can store your starter in the fridge for up to 3 weeks or longer sometimes. So what you do, you feed your starter and you put it away in the fridge. I usually do this when I'm going on a trip. So when you come back, there is water on top, and this is how your starter looks. It's not dead, you just have to retrieve it by dumping out a big portion of it, leaving about 2 to 3 tablespoons, and flour and water. You may have to do this feeding for 3 days, 2 to 3 days to get your rice back. I hope I answered all your questions and you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my YouTube video on how to make a foolproof sourdough bread.